All right, guys, HQ, it's been another couple of weeks. As always, time delays, a million other reasons. It is what it is. We're back into it now. So I think where we left off last, we had all the shifter gate, everything sort of in there, and it was working, but the issue we had was just the movement in the gate mechanism, allowing you to potentially go further than the gear that you were gated to select. Like neutral and third were a bit too close together, and if you weren't careful, you go from neutral, or if you go smack into third, you'd actually go neutral. And a lot of that was to do with the movement in the gate mechanism. We sort of racked our brains trying to figure out what we could do about it. We didn't know if maybe we needed to change the gate width a little bit to get it right. Actually, Bo came up with a really good suggestion that we could actually brace the mechanism off the arm that holds the cable, because the arm that holds the cable is bolted to the column and it doesn't move. And so you could actually make a brace off that arm up to the gate to sort of keep it solid and give it another mount point to the column instead of just the 4 little screws that it's mounted with. So that was a really good idea. And pretty much the problem we were trying to fight was the amount of movement we had in this aluminium shifter gate. Oop, nearly dropped it. So like your pin would be going through the maze, but the whole sort of system would move a bit. So the boys there at Sunny Coast Makerspace, Dominic, when we got it all done, he actually made up a couple more than just that one, but he made them in steel. And that's what we've got in the car now. So I started putting a steel one together because I figured if we had to change the gate width a little bit, steel would be better. Because you use the steel one, you can just sort of build up one of the gate edges with a bit of weld if you had to, and clean up the other side just to change the gate width and change where it actually sits. So I put the steel one together with some stainless rivets, and just once the steel one was together with some stainless rivets, it just felt a lot more solid than the Ali one did, period, at all anyway. So we just tried that in the car. We've got the steel one in it now with those rivets, and yeah, the steel setup is just way more solid, way less flex. We just tested it out with the shifter in the car, and it's the best we're ever going to get it. So it feels really good. We don't have to worry about a brace. It's the best we're going to get it in a column that's, you know, it's a 50-year-old car. It's a 50-year-old column. We've rebuilt it as best we can, but there is a little bit of movement in the column still in the mechanism. It's the best we're ever going to get this system. It still feels really, really solid. The shifting feels good. All the gears feel really defined on the shift. So we're really happy with it. So basically that's how it's going to stay. The only thing we're going to do is, now that this is riveted together and all together in steel, once we take it off, we're just going to tack weld the pieces together. So we're just going to weld these on the top and bottom and just make sure that over time, with the abuse and a bit of force, it's not going to try and work these rivets loose and work them out a bit. You know, as long as it's sort of welded and tacked a bit in there, it should stop that from happening as time goes on. But very, very happy with it. It's feeling really good, which is good because that's been a huge mental roadblock trying to figure out how we're going to get it to work after so long developing it. So yeah, frustrating. But yesterday we spent the whole day on this thing as well. Both starting to get our throttle cable system sorted. I've modified our injector subloom to suit our new 1650s injectors. We've ordered the fittings we need to do our overflow and everything else. So it's getting close. It is slowly creeping closer. I mean, at the moment, at this stage, we do have an end date in mind. We do have a goal for a new deadline, which we're working towards. I still haven't come up with a solution for the IC7 inside. At this stage, I'm just not worried about it at the moment. Main thing is to get this thing running. We want to get it on the dyno ASAP so that we can see if we're going to have any teething issues. We may have some things we have to revisit, redo, look at, fix. And I want to know that ASAP so that we can get onto those. And at that stage, I can start looking at getting the IC7 sorted. But obviously, if you have an end date in mind or a deadline in mind, and you are building the car up until, you know, the week of the deadline, if you put it on the dyno and there's some issues, well, then you're cooked. So we just want to get it on the dyno as soon as possible. But we are getting pretty close. We've got to sort out a bit of wiring inside and deal with a few things. Finish a few little bits and bobs on the fuel system, get this throttle thing sorted. And then we're sort of getting close to fluids and power and starting to sort of get there. I've set up the the bleed for the modulator for the gearbox, which you need for boosted cars for turbo 400. So it's just a valve that bleeds off boost pressure so that the actuator doesn't see boost pressure and only sees vacuum and atmospheric, which is what we found with our shop ute when we went to Lakeside, was that if the gearbox is seeing boost pressure, it won't do that 1-2 shift until you back off. So it's very important to have that in it. We've got one in our shop ute now to fix that problem. So we've got that set up. I've got that set up. It's bolted to, or it's tied up on the brace. That's the bracket for the oil cooler that's under the car there. So, all right, guys, back on the HQ. It's now Friday of this week, and I had hoped to pretty much have this thing on the dyno this week, which is unfortunately not going to happen. But the plan, the goal for today still is to have this thing making noise. At least still just want to get this thing started today. You know, fluids, oil pressure, get it started and running. There's still obviously a fair bit that we're gonna have to do before it's ready for the dyno. You know, brakes, and there's a few other bits and bobs that have to get done. It just is what it is. But we have been working on it this week. Just there's been a few other outside circumstances which have sort of eliminated our possibility of getting it on the dyno this week. But it is what it is. So there's been a new bracket made up for the back of the cover here, which actually mounts our gearbox dipstick. Our billet gearbox sticks to the back of the cover there, which is a really nice little piece. We've got our accelerator cable sorted, so Bo made up these brackets with the accelerator cable, which look like they are going to work freaking brilliant. It was actually a fair bit of a challenge and a lot of time involved because this was a 186 manual car. It didn't have a cable from factory. It had a linkage set up for the accelerator, so there was no provision for a cable in the firewall. The provision was for a linkage, which is very different. So it was actually a lot harder than one would think to try and get that sorted and get it right. As you can see, our shifter gate, Bo welded it up for us. Flicker paint on that, so it's all nice and black, but there's no possibility of those stainless steel rivets, although they probably wouldn't have because they're stainless steel rivets, but just didn't want them to eventually work them way loose and have that start to get some bit of movement, which would mean you could accidentally get the wrong gears, etc. So that's been two seemingly small jobs that have actually been quite a huge leap forward and a lot of time. So we finally got our fuel system back together. Surge tanks back in. We had a bit of a situation where we had to rob a lot of those parts for another job to get it done. That was in a real hurry, and we were waiting on those parts to arrive again so we could replace them. So they're replaced and that's back together, which is wicked. Just other bits and bobs, things that are small. At the moment, Bo's pulling the front housing back off the turbo because when I put it back together, I forgot to put the seal ring on the core that actually seals the core to the front housing. So my bad. Fortunately, that's got to go back in. So sorry, Bo, but yeah, got to pull that front housing back off the turbo to get that in there. We've just received all of the parts we need to plumb up the overflow system. So the overflow can get plumbed up. This little dick can get blocked off. So yeah, there's a couple of little fuel system things we have to fix up at the back. And a big thing is we need to get this thing forward off the hoist so we can get the column back together with the steering wheel and a few other things. But apart from that, once that's done, there really is no reason that we shouldn't be able to get this thing full of fluids, plug everything in under the dash, and power it up and hear some noise. Sorted. We've still got to sort out the wiring up the front here and get the lights sorted. We still have to sort out mounting the ECU and fuse box under the dash. We still have to come up with a solution for the IC7. Like, there is still a lot of things to do before the car's finished, but as I have talked about, probably sound like a broken record, I just want it running. I would really like it on the dyno ASAP. Obviously we're going to need brakes and stuff for the dyno, but all that other stuff can wait. Like I said, I just want to make sure there's no issues with this thing so that we can make sure we have, if we have issues, we can make sure that they're sorted and fixed before the deadline. So we're working hard at it, but it's all coming up together pretty well. I've finished the wiring I needed to do under the dash. The flex fuel sensor is actually wired into the ECU. The boys at Whitey's, when they wired the car, they actually wired a trans brake button feedback into one of the DPOs. So there is a trans brake plug in there for future. Now obviously this Turbo 400, we only got like a hot rod rated gearbox. It's only rated for 500 horsepower. It's still a completely automatic valve body, so you can still cruise in it, and there is no trans brake. So I was able to delete that SPI for the trans brake button and use that for flex fuel, which was lucky. So it was just something that was there for future because all of the SPIs were already taken up. So at least we're able to do that. So flex fuel is going to work, which is good. It's all happy days. It's all coming up Millhouse and it's looking really good. It's dusty as hell at the moment, but once it's cleaned up, it looks good. I'm stoked with how these brackets came out. They look awesome. But yeah, I mean, at this stage, my single biggest regret for this car was we should have just gone fly-by-wire from the very beginning. We went cable because we really wanted to keep like an old school feel for the drive. We wanted to feel sort of like you're still driving an old school car, but the reality is for how much easier it is to set up fly-by-wire and how much more you can do with them, it is what it is. Not much we can do about it now. Super committed to obviously having the cable throttle body at this point, but it's something that can happen in future if need be. All happening, boys and girls, getting close. Dump pipes back in. Another good look at Ryan's beautiful work. But exhaust can go in now. Thinking about just chucking some oil in this diff while we have it up, is what I'm thinking, but we still have to finish all of these lines and stuff like that. There's still a few things we need to do. We've left all the fuel pumps and everything unplugged, no plugs, no coils. This ECU was bought like 2 years ago when we started the car, so there's going to be a million firmware updates to do to get it update with NSP, and you have to have the coils disconnected to do that anyway. Plus, we don't want plugs or anything in the engine so we can prime it and get oil pressure up. So there's a few things like that to do before we bother, you know, actually getting back under here, getting the fuel pumps plugged in and everything else, and getting the fuel system happening and getting it started. So, but we'll get some fluids in it, get all this done, get the exhaust on. I'm super keen to actually hear how this thing sounds through this exhaust. All right, it's gonna be mint. Rightio, so dipstick sorted, we're full of fluids. We're just sort of doing all the firmware and ECU stuff at the moment. I've gone through, found all the calibrations for our sensors and got everything we need to get that sorted, and some data for our injectors so that we can get this base map right. So we're getting pretty close. So just leaving the power steering pump unplugged for now. There's no fluid in that, but it doesn't need to be running. A lot of things are still, yeah, like we said, guys, it's definitely a long way from being done, but we are getting close to hopefully hitting the key. So Rex has made up a decent engine earth. That's on there now as well. Probably just about to take the plugs out so that once the base map's sorted, we can start building some oil pressure. And then after that, we've got to send it back up and run around and plug in all of the fuel pumps and stuff and get everything else plugged in, plug the igniter in under the dash and stuff, and get that sorted all. I'll give you a good look under the dash. There's still a lot of tidying up to do under there, but I would really like to give you a good look at the wiring, because the boys there at Whitey's definitely deserve their flowers for how good of a job they do. But anyway. Righto, boys and girls, didn't quite get there yesterday, it just got too late. So we didn't quite get this thing fired up, but it is all primed up. We got oil pressure, fluids, I put the plugs in it. Fresh coil packs going on. What a monumental day this will be. Big day.
One small step for me.
So this year we've sort of really been trying not to work weekends, just because we were getting that wrecked from the past couple of years of just working pretty much 7 days straight. But you know, we're back here this weekend because it's a big deal. Getting this thing running is a big deal, and we want to hear some noise. So it's all happening. Time for fuel pressure. See if we've got any fuel leaks.
Fuel pump, at least. Is that front one running?
Sounds like it. Fuel pressure's up. Well, I definitely can't smell any fuel or see any, so that's a really good start considering how many fittings are involved with the whole setup. None on the floor. Alright, so the dash needs firmware updates. It's not actually reading, but it doesn't matter because we can see everything we need through the computer anyway. It's not going to stop us getting running, so we can just get it running. Also, my little stepped line holders that we use for the turbo lines coming in clutch. Hey, how good does that look? We managed to actually mount the throttle cable to the vacuum line with those, and they look really nice and they work perfect. So yeah, just so happens that the throttle cable's like a perfect size of an AN4 line, so that worked really well. But I mean, ultimately already we have oil pressure and we can't see any oil leaks, and fuel pressure and we can't see any fuel leaks. So we're already on a pretty good start to get there. There is a little bit of a trans leak just around the pan because it's got a cork gasket on it. They are the bane of our friggin' existence. It's not going to stop us from getting it running today, but it is something we're going to have to sort out because the trans pan's leaking from that freaking cork gasket. What an absolute pain. But anyway. All right. First start. Oh, is the igniter plugged in?
No.
Yeah, it's probably a good start. All right, get the igniter. We got no igniter. That's not gonna help.
Now, do we need to...
Oh,
I ain't never did this before.
with an igniter box.
Yeah, do we have to do anything or is that it? Just plug it in and
Don't.
go?
I'm pretty sure you just plug it in. Just got signals in and out. Righto guys, so the issue we've come across is that the ECU is not seeing an ignition, 12 volt ignition in where it should be from the key to tell the ECU that the key is on, the ignition's on, and that should fire the car. Just checking the pin out, it appears that in the pin where there is meant to be ignition in, there is just literally nothing there. Obviously it's Saturday, so we can't talk to the boys at Whitey's because they don't work on weekends, but we're just gonna have to dig around and see what we can figure out. We might have to do something temporary for now just to get it started, so that that pin is seeing 12 volts so that it will fire the damn car. Alrighty, so Rex has just turned the engine relay and ignition switch off in the ECU just to see if that will just bypass the issue of having to get it to fire. So let's see, first start, see if it'll do it. Woo!
Did something.
Yeehaw! Oh, it was short, but it's running. So we do just have a little bit of a leak from the thermostat housing, which I'm not worried about right now. We will fix it, but hey, it fired, it ran for a while.
It did, very briefly.
Very briefly, but nonetheless, exciting stuff. That's sorted. What do you reckon, buddy? It runs. Woohoo! Yeah. Go again, go again. Beer's gonna taste extra good tonight. Rightio guys, so there you have it. She runs, it runs. Can't go too much further than that at the moment because it just runs at the moment because it's still got so much to do. Like I said guys, there's still so far to go with this thing, but that's just a monumental big step. So at this stage, I'm planning timeline for the next 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks time, the owner's birthday, pretty big milestone birthday as well. So we are gunning to have this thing back to him for his birthday this year, which is in 2 weeks. So at this stage, obviously it's running, which is a huge step forward. So we've still got to do both front wheel bearings because they're real sad. We've got new ones there. So we won't bother bleeding up the brakes until we've done them because it's a waste of time. So Monday, wheel bearings. We'll work on getting all these brakes bled up. We've got to get it sat down on something on wheels or something on the back so that we can set the pinion angle and then button up everything in the rear, the coilovers, all the adjustable arms, etc. Button all those up. At that point, get the column all back together and then it's drivable. So then it's moving, drivable under its own power. So then I want to get it on the dyno. Hopefully that'll be mid next week. Get it run in, do most of the 98 tune and then run in on it. Make sure we're not got any other leaks, teething issues, other things we need to sort out. Then it can come back off the dyno. It's going to need its first oil service, oil change, flush out all of that assembly lube, get some fresh oil in it, basically do our final, you know, our first checks and everything else, a big check over the car, and sort out any of those teething issues that we may find in the first dyno session. Then we will be ready for going back on the dyno. It'll be ready to finish the 98, get the E85 in it, finish the 85 and the flex. So I'm hoping this is the following week, start of the following week basically, is to finish the tune off and have it done. Get a quick bit of road driving and road testing around. In the meantime, a few things to sort out, like headlight wiring, which we have to fix and put back in. We've got to put this panel on. Got to fix and tidy up under the dash, mount the ECU and do all that. You know, there's a few other things in there we've got to sort out. And in the meantime, while all that's going on, hopefully I can sort out a solution for this IC7 mount as well as the rotary dial. But essentially, next week, running, driving, run in. The following week, finish, tune, bit of road driving. Hopefully have the IC7 and everything else finished and pretty much ready to go back to the owner that weekend, just in time for his birthday. So that's the plan, which will be awesome after all this time. It would just be so good. So exciting stuff. Tune in for the next episode. I don't know if I showed you either, but we capped that overflow. We sorted this overflow out. That's plumbed to our overflow tank, which is our combination tank. That's beautiful fab work made by Ryan. So that's all plumbed in, ready to go. So the level and the quality of whoever did the interior and then did the paint before the car even got here, and then just the quality and the level of the wiring that's gone into the car, like this wiring loom, and I'll show you inside. It is just absolutely beautiful. It is such a nice piece of work. And then obviously all of Ryan there at Elite Fabs, absolutely astounding fabrication. You know, there's so many people that have just done so much nice work to this car. We just hope that what we've done and our part, you know, is up to scratch and sort of matches the rest of the quality of the car and the standard to which it's built. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode. Smash like, smash subscribe. Go check out the store, buy some stuff. I'm just so happy this thing's running. It's incredible that this thing's running. So thanks, guys. Catch you later. Peace out. See you. Bye.